I value time. I really do value time. And in a service industry where I'm using people's time for them to engage with me, so in training or coaching, they're investing time to be with me. And I'm very, very mindful that time is a non-renewable resource and it's a very precious commodity that we are giving away. So I want to make sure that the person is getting maximum value from their perspective for the time they're investing in working with me.
So you're a smart business committed to innovation, to service and to modern marketing, and you're asking, what's next? Wondering how you can become even more innovative. My name is Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and this is the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Hi innovators, it's great to be back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. Today we begin our new format for the Model the Masters signature series, in which we interview masters of a particular stage of the transformational marketing journey to enable us to perhaps model from what they do. It's my aim to start a movement to create excellence in marketing and perhaps elevate that excellence beyond the noise of the ordinary by learning from masters of their craft. That's the purpose of the Model the Masters signature series of the InnovaBuzz podcast. It's a great privilege to have as my guest today to explore the topic of delivering an exceptional customer experience, my business coach and friend Joanne Clark of Destiny Pursuit Coaching and Training. Joanne was one of my very first InnovaBuzz podcast guests way back on episode 6, where she told us about her innovative approach to coaching and how she helps her clients get out of their own way. On today's episode, Joanne told us about her values, which include service, respecting the time customers invest in you, and creating a safe environment conducive to learning and playful curiosity. She told us about her beliefs that the entire customer experience has to be congruent and aligned. Customers need to be living and breathing that experience to get the most out of it. And she told us about some of her strategies that allow her to be flexible and adapt to the needs of her customers. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from today's master, Joanne Clark. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Welcome to another Model the Masters episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast. Now, in today's episode, I'm actually sitting in the same room with Joanne Clark in Geelong, Australia. Now, Joanne's from Destiny Pursuit Coaching and Training. She's a performance coach and NLP master practitioner and NLP trainer, and she's got extensive experience in the corporate world. So welcome to the Model the Masters episode,
Jürgen.
Joanne. It's a privilege to have you as a guest.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, what we want to explore with you today, Joanne, is how you deliver an exceptional customer experience.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So before we do that, give us a short snapshot about your business. What do you do and why do you do what you do?
Well, my business is, as in the title, coaching and training, and it's almost 10 years old. Actually, this year I'll be celebrating my 10th birthday in my business.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And it has evolved over that time. Initially, when I started in my business, I did a lot of one-on-one coaching. And that was fantastic to really hone my skills and craft in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and specifically honing those skills around serving clients, really working individually with clients and making sure that I bought a full toolkit ready and able to serve them with. So bringing lots of behavioural flexibility around that, rather than having a stereotype type of coaching session or a cookie cutter approach to them. what I discovered was that for some clients that I was working with, working as a part of a group was in fact more effective. In a way, being in a group meant that an individual person I was working with didn't have to go through a whole sequence of experience to get the value of experiences. They could actually learn from, I suppose, the mistakes and also the wins of others and shortcut their success strategies by listening and learning from them in the context of being in a training room where there was deep rapport, not just between myself and the participants, but also between the participants themselves. So for my business, that's really where the training took off. Mm-hmm. Now in my business, I do NLP practitioner training, NLP master practitioner training. I'm just about to launch the NLP trainers training. I also train people in public speaking, and I do some leadership training with specific companies that have contracted me to do that. All of those trainings include NLP as the base. So I'm using NLP techniques and strategies to really guide people. Of course, I also participate in the First Fast Mastery program, where we take a group of clients away with us, a consortium, which you're in. We go away and take a group of business clients to use the Disney creativity strategy and really plan out some great goals for their business.
Yeah, and I think we were reflecting this morning that I have been a client of yours for 8 years. I've participated in a lot of your training. As you mentioned, we're working together on the First Fast Business Mastery Retreat, and it's always struck me that one of the things that sets you apart from other trainings and other trainers that I've been involved in is that you're really focused on the total experience, not just on delivering value around the training content itself, but that the whole experience is actually exceptional and that the experience really underpins the whole value that people take away from the training. So that's why I thought it would be great to explore with you what your approach is to delivering that exceptional experience.
Yeah. And you're right, Jürgen, I do believe very strongly that an experience for people needs to be congruent and aligned, the whole experience. In order for a person to really get the value out of it, they need to be living and breathing it throughout the training. It's not something, I'm not big on having a person learn something as if they were reading it from a book and then take it away and try to apply it. In my training, I focus very much on the experience of learning and the experience of applying your learnings in the context of a training room. So for that to happen, I do look very closely at the physical environment that we're in. It needs to be an environment that enables people to take risks, to be a bit vulnerable when we're learning new things. We might not feel quite so confident or, we might feel a little bit vulnerable around exposing the things we don't know yet, particularly in competitive business environments. So, really I want to create an environment for people where they feel safe and can bring a playful attitude to learning, where they can actually take it out for a test drive and muck it up and learn from that, and also see how what sort of mistakes other people make. And then together, everybody gets to learn much, much faster. And so the physical environment is critical to that, as is, I think, the environment around what people get to eat and making sure they've got enough hydration, making sure there's lots of natural light. Those things really do have a big impact on learning environments. So I don't rely on people to bring their own food because I know what the training involves and I know the level of both cognitive and physical activity that's involved. So I make sure that the nutrition is provided to enable people to participate to the full for, I don't know, some of the trainings are 7 days long, some are 10 days long, some are only 1 day, but, I want to make sure that their experience of that is one of being nurtured and cared for whilst they're stretching their capabilities and skills.
Yeah, that's great. Now, just for the listeners, there's a lot of lessons in that, and we'll explore a little bit more about values that underpin how you approach that and why you think all of those things are important in your training. But for the listeners, think of this. So some people may or may not have training businesses, others have service business or even product businesses, but the experience that you deliver your customers is really a part of that whole thing. And really that's the experience that you deliver is what has people coming back and buying more from you or referring other people to you. So take the lessons learned hopefully in this episode around delivering your exceptional experience.
Exactly, because you're focused on what do you want your client to experience in engaging with your business, with your product, with your service, and making sure that their experience of that engagement is consistent with your branding and consistent with you as the business owner, how your values, your beliefs within the context of the business, obviously.
So I'd like to explore values a little bit more because we're doing this just after lunch. We had a little discussion at lunch around an incident where I think somebody was not living the values of service to their customer. And so what I'd like to explore is really digging into those values that you have around delivering an exceptional customer experience and what you think is important and what people might be able to learn from that in terms of them delivering an experience that their customers will think is exceptional.
Yeah.
So what's important to
Well, I think, again, I like to start with the focus on the experience I want them to have. So getting very, very clear about how the customer will feel and what they will see, hear, and tell themselves. So really developing that sensory outcome definition around what I want the customer to experience. And then my challenge is being congruent with that. So making sure that in delivering that, I have an alignment. And I suppose part of that is I value time. I really do value time. And in a service industry where I'm using people's time for them to engage with me, so in training or coaching, they're investing time to be with me. And I'm very, very mindful that time is a non-renewable resource and it's a very precious commodity that we are giving away. So I want to make sure that the person is getting maximum value from their perspective for the time they're investing in working with me. And so there, I suppose the value is really around connection with the client from the space of acknowledging their own individual desires and needs and values and wants so that I can then bring behavioural flexibility and adapt what I have to offer in a way that enables them rather than limits them or imprisons them in a service system structure. I mean, of course, there are structures, but I still think that as a facilitator, a leader, a trainer, I can bring that behavioural flexibility and adapt to suit what will meet my client's needs. My background, I did quite a bit of work in disability, and so I suppose on reflection, that probably is where a lot of that value comes from, that it is about these are my customers and how do I create the environment that will enable them rather than draw out or, put obstacles in their path. And where you're working with people with physical disability, that may, that can require quite a bit of adaptation to the physical environment. So I think that that's probably where that value comes from, being very, very focused on providing an enabling environment for people.
So it's all very much service focused, isn't it?
Yeah.
And focused on how you set up environment and structure to deliver a service that is in fact exceptional, an experience that is exceptional for the client. So in terms of knowing that you've achieved that, knowing that that was an exceptional experience and the outcomes were exceptional for the client, how do you go about that?
Well, I look for my clients to be surprised. Like they're surprised by things they discover in working with me. And that surprise, it may not always be a pleasant surprise. Some of the discoveries are like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I had that baggage. However, in that surprise, and there's then the birth of an opportunity, because at that point the client can make a choice, and the choice is, do I want to keep it like this, or do I want to change it, or do I want to improve it and modify it in some way? So, it comes to that model of change where they're making decisions about maintaining or transforming or eliminating something that they don't want anymore, a behaviour, a value, a belief, a product, a service, whatever it is. So for me, I'm looking for that surprise with the clients, that they're on a journey of internal discovery and they're finding things out about themselves that they didn't know before or they hadn't looked at in that way. So a new perspective, perhaps.
Okay. So there's a lot in there. I mean, we've talked about time as a value and service as a value. And you mentioned a lot there around change and choice, which I guess are also values. So what else do you consider key values in how you deliver an exceptional outcome?
Well, as someone who works in the NLP space, I refer a lot to a number of the presuppositions of NLP. And there it is, a person always does the best they can with what they've got. So my presupposition is that a person is behaving in a certain way or doing certain strategies because that is the best they've got. And if the strategies aren't resourceful or ecological in their environment or in a particular context, and they need to become aware of that so then they can have more choice. So increasing choice is another one of the presups. But I think really the respect for the person's map of the world and a true belief that the person is doing the best they can with what they've got. I think that, so I suppose in a way that kind of comes back to trust. It's trusting that that's true for the client and working with them, respecting that.
Yeah. And part of what I've heard you say quite a lot is that following on from that everybody's doing the best they can with what they have, is that nobody's actually broken. So nobody's fixed. And if somebody's coming along and saying, well, I have to change or I want to change, that there's a check that you actually have and say, well, hang on, what is it that isn't working or what is it that is the problem and why is that not working?
Exactly right. Yeah, so in me trusting in them, I'm inviting them to trust themselves, that maybe what they're doing is an okay thing for them to be doing given their interpretation of the context or their experience of reality or their history. And now, in the present time, they have a choice whether to continue that or not because there's anything wrong with what they're doing or because they're broken in any way, but rather because at this point in time they may wish to make different choices. So it's really sort of celebrating and appreciating that the strategies and the beliefs and the values that you've been living with to date have worked to get you to here. And that's pretty cool. Mm. And now if you need new ones, we can work on that. And if you don't need new ones, you can keep the ones you got. So really having that trust and refusing to adopt the view that a person is faulty or needs to be fixed. Mm. Yeah.
Which I think is definitely something that differentiates your approach, because a lot of people, particularly when they market the courses or when they make a promise to people before they sign up, is, you've got something wrong with you because you're not achieving these results. I can change it for you so that you do achieve the results you desire. And the same is true of a lot of products and services that are marketed online. And I think that's kind of the flip side of that in a way they're doing themselves a disservice also, because they're almost setting themselves up for failure in taking that approach.
Yeah, I mean, it is true that pain, turning up the pain for someone, or their belief that, they need something, is a very common marketing strategy. It doesn't align with where I want my clients to go in terms of love and acceptance of themselves, and, really truly appreciating their unique talents and capabilities. Mm. So, I mean, of course, there's things that people come to me with that they're not happy with or they're dissatisfied with, and all we need to work out is, how's it working for them? And if it's not working for them, how do they want it to be instead? Let's do that, and let's work together to have that happen and become a reality for them. But it's not because they're broken. It's because they've outgrown an old strategy or outgrown an old experience, which at one point of their life was probably a very useful one. So
that's right. Served a purpose at some point. Now it might be in the way of something else.
Exactly right. Exactly. We clean out our wardrobe, so we should clean out our strategies and our beliefs and our values every now and then too. Have a good, have I outgrown this one? Should I, invest in a new pair?
Okay. Well, let's explore strategies a little bit more. So in terms of setting up a training program, for example, with that exceptional outcome in place, you talked a little bit about some of the considerations that you have, making sure that people are well fed and well hydrated, making sure that the environment, the external environment is conducive to good learning, such as natural lighting, such as comfort and so on. So how do you go about in terms of building the strategy for the program?
Do you mean for the content or for...
Overall. In terms of that experience.
Yes. Well, I know my strengths and I also know my weaknesses, and I'm not great with attention to detail on some of the things like diet and environment. So I find someone who is, and I employ them. I don't need to do it all myself. In fact, it would be a waste of my time and energy. It's not where my strength is. So I have a wonderful events manager who comes along and organises the physical environment, manages the catering, deals with the catering staff, and is there and available to any participant in my training to assist them to have their individual needs met. So if they've got individual dietary requirements, or if they have accommodation requirements or transport requirements, my events manager, Nikki, is there to assist people with that. And that, for me, is a really important support. I know that my clients are being well looked after by Nikki. Then in terms of me planning content and days, I am looking at the sequencing of content to make sense to the people who are in the room. But I'm also keeping some flexibility in there so that I can calibrate in the trainings each day. Where are these people up to? So every morning when I start a training session, I'm saying to people, how are you going after yesterday? What did you notice? What did you learn? What are you going to share? and I'm calibrating based on the responses I'm getting from the room, whether the content chunks I've planned for the day are a match for where the room is at. And if they're not, then I'll switch them because it's important that the participants are getting the right information at the right time for them. And my timetable can be switched around. I've got that flexibility, and so I will adapt what I'm teaching on a day if there's something in particular that's come up in the room that is right now relevant, so I can put in the learnings around that. And it adds so much more value because people have got a real life experience they're going through, and now we're doing some learning on that real life experience rather than just sticking to my agenda and rigidly applying it regardless of where the audience or the participants are at. So I think that behavioural flexibility part is really important there.
That's a great approach, and I noticed you talked about chunks, so in structuring that, and some of these programs you mentioned earlier are 10 days long, so there's a lot of time where you're in front of the room presenting, but also there's lots of activities that happen, and so chunking it down must be really valuable in terms of being able to have that flexibility.
Yeah, so it's important for me that I know my content in I suppose categories. I've kind of divided up, like there's language and then there's techniques, and some of them are change techniques, some of them are something like metaphors, some of them are strategies. So, putting my content into meaningful chunks that I can shift around. I kind of think of it as a bit like, like a Lego construction. So I'm moving the blocks around, and today we build a castle, and tomorrow we build a train set or a station, and the next day we build a spaceship or a bus or whatever that suits that. We've got all these pieces that we can move around to do that.
Yeah.
So me knowing that information in those categories and chunks is really important.
And at the end of the training, you've got the whole landscape.
That's right, exactly. And you have to, I check off that I've covered everything that is required, because my NLP trainings are recognised by the Australian Board of NLP, and there are, of course, mandatory components in the training that mean that I can attract that accreditation for my students. So, I need to make sure I have covered those essential components. Yeah.
Now, most training programs that I know of, and I know yours are no exception there, often have somebody in the training that kind of derails things for one reason or another. So how do you deal with situations like that? If somebody's there that, they've got something going on and they're not fully present, or they're distracting others, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'd be looking at in a training is the mix of people in the room. And in particular, I have spoken to every person before they come into one of my training rooms, so I know them to some extent, and I know their purpose for being there. So to some extent, I am looking at utilising whatever comes up in the room in a way that serves the other participants and the participant who's got the stuff coming up, but in a way that serves the room, so that they all get to learn or to be confronted by the things that are currently limiting them. So if someone else's behaviour is problematic for someone in the room, then I'm kind of curious. I want to explore the possibility that this behaviour can be utilised to help someone else in the room grow the skills and capability to perhaps confront them, or to set a boundary and say, actually, I'm not going to let this person interfere with my learning. But, of course, sometimes it involves having a direct conversation with the person and challenging them and pointing out to them the impact of their behaviour. Because for some people, they're not even aware of it. They're so self-absorbed in that moment that they've lost the capacity to calibrate the impact they're having on other people in the room. So bringing that into their conscious awareness and confronting them with it and having them realise the consequences of their behaviour can be another strategy that I use. So it really does depend on the room. Ultimately, if someone wasn't there to learn and the training wasn't adding value, then they have the option of leaving, and that's certainly something that I would never prevent someone from doing if they discovered that the training wasn't for them. So, there's a whole continuum of interventions and responses that I can have. My first approach is this particular behaviour that seems disruptive in the context of a training. How can it be used to serve the room? How can it be used to have other people take responsibility for their own learning, regardless of the environments that they might find themselves in the future? So they don't, ever let someone else deny them access to learning or access to an opportunity because there's some person who's been, a bit of a pain.
Yeah, that's great. So you talked about talking to people before they come into the training room. So obviously that's possible when you've got a small boutique business. So that might not be so viable for people that run larger events. But at the same time, can you talk to us a little bit about pricing of events like that? Because I could imagine that if somebody spends a lot of money for a big, significant training program and they suddenly realise, hang on, I'm in my own way of getting results from this training that I've got an investment in money in.
Yeah.
Let alone the time. Some people don't sort of value time as much. So how do you go about pricing in terms of structuring the events and making sure that that's all consistent with delivering that exceptional outcome?
Yeah. Well, I think the price has to be a disincentive to people who are dabblers. So by dabblers, I mean they like to try a lot of different things, but they're not really committed to adopting what they learn and applying it to the point where they're getting results. So they may try it out, but if it gets a bit tough or requires a bit of persistence, they drop it and move on to the next shiny thing. So for me, the price point is it's important that it discourages people who fit into that category. Just because, it's not really going to serve them to do the training. Equally, I suppose the more boutique it is, the higher the price point. And that's something that in my own business I'm looking at as we speak, really, because I'm considering creating even more boutique products or specialist products that people are willing to invest in. At the base level of the training, I think it's important to give people an opportunity to have an experience of the product or service. So in my case, have an experience of NLP. And my one-day trainings are priced and constructed to enable people to have that experience while still getting great value out of it in terms of things like public speaking skills or leadership, for new team leaders, for example, or even managing difficult people if you're in a management role. So I price those at a point where people can participate in the one day. It's not an enormous investment of either time or money. It's still valuable, but they get that experience. And so that can help them then choose whether they want to invest more time and more money in training with me and in training using NLP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a really neat approach from a service point of view to kind of the classical lead funnel type thing or upselling to higher value products.
Yeah.
But done in a way that serves the client first and also focused on that exceptional experience.
Yes. And I suppose in the sale process as well, for me, it is important that I break rapport with people when I'm in a sales process. So there's usually, because I'm in deep rapport with someone in a sales process, and then for them to make the decision, for me, it's kind of break that rapport and ensure that they're clear that they're making that choice. And there's no compulsion there because they don't need it. They're not broken. And making that really clear so they're exercising free choice about whether to participate or not. And for me, that's really important. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the exceptional outcome right from the beginning at the sales stage when people are making the decision. All right. That's been really good. I think I'd like to move on now to the exceptions round, which we've got 3 questions kind of that brings all this together. So hopefully, people will take something away from this and learn how they might be able to apply some of your values and some of your strategies into delivering exceptional customer experiences in their business. So first question is, what behaviour do you do? So what's the most important behaviour that you do to be great at delivering an exceptional customer experience?
I practice what I preach. So I'm a continuous learner, and I review what I'm using, the tools I'm using. I review it regularly. Some of the things I use for teaching tools, I might have listened to 50 times. And I never presume that I know it. I'm always curious about how else could I say it, how else could I say it, how else could I say it. So for me, I do that to maintain a rigour around content. And my ability to be nimble in the room with those Lego pieces is dependent on that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so it comes back to really being self-aware in terms of what you do know, but how else that might apply in different situations. Or what more can be learned from that.
Yeah, so never presuming that I know the answer, rather living in the question of what else could I know about this thing. I might already think I know a lot about it, but there's always something else to learn about or a different perspective of it that I can learn from. So keeping that curiosity and that loop of learning open.
Great. So what are your 3 top beliefs for excelling at delivering an exceptional customer experience?
Behavioural flexibility is number 1. So being able to respond to the customer on the spot in their way, in a way that connects with them. It's never, I prefer to communicate with you like this. It's always, how can I communicate with this customer or this client so that they get the experience that they're looking for, the exceptional experience they're looking for. So that's got to be number 1. I'm the one who brings the behavioural flexibility. Number 2, being very, very focused on the outcome. So sometimes customers, they have a particular want. However, they may also have needs. Usually they won't pay for their needs to be met. They'll buy what they want. So making sure that I can give people what they want whilst also meeting their needs. To me, that's number 2. It's not just giving them what they want and ignoring what they need. So in the context of my business, that wouldn't even make sense. Yeah. And number 3, I think for an exceptional customer experience, it's probably being very present and calibrating how the customer's going on the journey and being able to adapt on my feet, if you like, to take opportunities that come up that maybe are a little bit off track from the core of what we're doing, but nevertheless will add value to the client. So really taking opportunities, I suppose, to add extra value to the client if it comes up, rather than saying, oh, well, they didn't pay for that, so I'm not going to give it to them. It's kind of, it's really doing that.
Great. All right. And what do you think is the key difference that makes a difference in how you deliver an exceptional customer outcome?
It's knowing my strengths and knowing my limitations and making sure I've got people around me who are good at what I'm not good at, who can support me in delivering the complete customer experience for people that I'm working with. So, just making sure that I've got a team who are aligned with that vision of providing that exceptional experience to customers, and that we complement each other in terms of our skills, capabilities and expertise.
Okay, great advice. So that's the first time I've asked those three questions in a podcast in that form, and I wasn't quite sure how they come across, but they were some awesome answers. Thanks.
Great.
So thanks, Joanne. So where can people reach out and say thank you for what you shared today?
Well, you can contact me on email. So it's Joanne at destinypursuit.com.au, and that's pursuit with a P-U-R-S-U-I-T. And, or on Facebook under Destiny Pursuit Coaching and Training, and my website, destinypursuitcoachingandtraining.com.au. So,
all right, and we'll have links to all of that in the show notes underneath the podcast episode. So finally, who's someone you consider to be a model for delivering exceptional customer experiences, and can you introduce us?
Someone I consider exceptional customer experiences. Well, I've recently started working with a physio who, his name's Jed, who's at a Kaiser service in Geelong. And I've been very impressed with his capacity to really deliver good customer service, excellent customer service. Very, caring, very clear, a great listener, really good listener. So I think he's pretty awesome. And because it's a new, I'm a customer, a new customer, I'm quite impressed by that as someone just starting up with him.
All right. Well, we might reach out and have a chat to Jed then.
Yeah.
Learn about how he delivers an exceptional customer experience. So thanks so much for sharing all your insights with us today and going through that exercise of understanding more about your beliefs and values around delivering an exceptional customer experience. And I know we're going to keep in touch. So I wish you all the best for the future and encourage our audience to reach out to you if they want to find out more.
Great. Thank you, Jürgen.
Thanks, Joanne.
I hope you enjoyed both the new format of the Model the Master's Signature series and learned from what Joanne shared with us on this episode. I certainly have a lot of new ideas and thoughts from today's discussion. A summary of the values, beliefs and strategies that Joanne shared with us today can be found at modelthemasters.co/Joanne Clark. That is modelthemasters, one word, .co/JOANNECLARK. No E on the end. All lowercase, all one word, modelthemasters.co/Joanne Clark. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Joanne there. Joanne nominated Jed of Physiology at the Kaiser Training Centre in Geelong as someone that she admires for delivering an exceptional customer experience. So we'll reach out to Jed to see if we can have a chat. Stay connected head on over to iTunes or Stitcher or Pocket Casts and subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you make sure you'll never miss another episode. We'd also love you to leave us a review because what you think matters. Take some of the ideas you've heard today and apply them in your business. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions or questions, share them in the comments below the blog post. And remember, if you want to get better marketing results than you ever have, join our fantastic LinkedIn community at the Transformational Marketing Academy. All you have to do is go to innovabiz.co/TMAC. It's free to join. Hope to see you there soon. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember to be awesome and keep innovating.